Hey you guys, Scott Ryan from Fit Society. Just here to talk to you a little bit about your warm-up routine. Okay, if you guys are new to Fit Society, you've been here for a long time, this is just a good way to find something that you're going to be consistent with. You can do this in your house, you can do this in your car, the trunk of your car, or the doorway. You can do it inside a door frame or inside the rig at your gym. Something that you guys are going to have a standby assist to be able to provide consistency in your warm-up. Okay? We're going to go through a few lower extremity and upper extremity stretches that are all dynamic. Nothing is going to be held. We're going to go through this with motion. That's how we want to get moving, especially as we're moving into a workout. Our goal is to turn on the body, not just to turn on some of the static muscles, but the dynamic ones. We want everything moving as we're moving into that workout. So again, this is something that you can do routinely everywhere. You need to start with just a towel, okay? If you don't have a towel, that's fine. You can find something else that'll help elevate the foot, but what we're going to do is just fold that towel right in half, roll it into a ball or a log, and all we're going to do is we're going to put that towel on the floor right behind us. I'm going to put the ball of my foot on there so my heel is on the floor, but the front of my foot is elevated. From there, I'm going to use the door frame that I have, the rig frame, or maybe it's the trunk of my car. I'm going to step into that stretch. Okay? You can do this on a curve as well. I'm feeling a nice big stretch behind the back of that leg into that calf muscle, and we're driving ourselves straight forward. So this is our 3D calf stretch. So when we talk about 3D, it means that I'm going to step forward and rotate. Okay, I'm going to move in all planes of motion, step forward and rotate. Biggest part of this is that the hips are rotating, so we're getting some rotation of the actual leg as I'm moving through this motion and stretching the calf. This is a good stretch for just about anyone, especially because we're focusing on gait and the way that we move. So you can notice that I've gone in all three directions about 5 times. From there, I can take this into a tension stretch if I like. So holding the tension of that stretch, and then I'm either going to drive my hips side to side, or I'm going to swing my leg and drive my hips side to side together. From there, we're going to add in a little bit more of that forward and back motion. So I'm going to just drive and step, drive and step. Good. Focusing a lot on the hip drive, keep my back leg nice and straight, and then adding in our transverse plane, which is that rotation at the end. For some of us, this is a little bit more advanced. Just focus on those 3 main stretches of forward to the inside and outside for that step. Okay, next you guys need a chair or a box. Anyone will work. Make sure you're getting reps on both legs, but this should just give you a general understanding of the stretches that we want to be working through as often as possible. So I'm going to step my heel on that towel now. I'm going to go into a nice big long stride out in front of me. So what we want to focus on here is that we're getting extension of our hip flexor. So which means I'm opening up my stride to feel a nice stretch in the front of the tissue of that hip, lower abdominals. Okay? Our goal here is to be able to drive our hips forward, not lunge our weight into our front foot. So majority of my weight is going to stay on this back leg. Again, you guys can use a chair, a box, anything you can elevate your foot. Like I said, the trunk of a car is really good, or inside the doorway of a car so you have something to hold on to on both sides. I'm going to drive my hips forward, feel a nice stretch in the front of that hip, keeping most of my weight back. I'm keeping my core nice and tight. So some points of performance. We want to have that posterior tilt of that pelvis and that back leg nice and straight, which means I want my butt nice and tight and my hips in the best position possible. That may shorten your range of motion. So this may be your stretch for a while until you can get to a place where you feel like you can bend that knee and really drive yourself into extension. So like we said, everything is 3-dimensional here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in a turn and a turn, using an upper extremity driver of the arm, adding in same side and opposite side rotations and reaches. Again, big part of this is that my pelvis is turning and I'm feeling that big stretch through that hip flexor the entire time. Same idea like those tension stretches as well, where I drive into the stretch and hold, adjust the back of the knee so it's nice and straight, and then I use the doorway or the frame of this rig to drive myself side to side so I can get an even more intense stretch through my hip flexor and some more of that entire hip capsule. So from there, we're going to add in that rotation. So find that nice tension of the hip, and then I'm going to turn and turn, or I can add in those reaches and those reaches. So again, we've gone from a dynamic movement to more of a tension dynamic movement. Okay? So from there, that's our hip stretch. We're going to go into our groin stretch. You don't need a towel for this one, so you can move it right out of the way. Back foot is now just going to toe out. So about 90 degrees in the opposite direction. My foot's going to continue to point forward on the box. I'm going to keep majority of my weight on my back hip. So I like taking my left hand, if my left foot is on the ground, I'm going to press that into the crease of my hip, drop my shoulders back towards that leg as I push my hips towards the box. Now I feel a nice big stretch on the inside of my leg. If you feel a little stretch in the front of the leg, that's okay too, but typically that just means we're pushing a little bit more weight forward than we want to. Try to shorten up your range of motion a little bit and just find the stretch to start. From there, you can drive the hand up overhead. You can drive both hands up or overhead with a rotation of the chest. And again, really trying to push that knee forward. If we have some restriction in those inner thighs, we'll start to feel that valgus or that drive of the knee inward as we come forward. So if that's the case, you can also sit the butt back a little bit and try to find that stretch with a little bit different of a motion. Good, you guys, perfect. Same idea here, we can drive those excursions under tension, so finding that stretch moving forward and back, side to side, and then little rotations. Remember, these should happen at the hip and the thighs, not at the knee. Those are the compensations we're trying to avoid. So from our groin stretch, we are then going to move into our hamstring stretch. So we're going to go foot up on the box, slight flex of the knee. We don't want to lock the knee out, but we want it pretty straight. I'm going to turn my bottom foot out slightly for balance. If we have a good standby assist, you guys can just point those hips straight forward and hold on nice and tight. You guys are going to drive forward into the motion of reaching towards my toe. This is a very standard reach. A lot of us have been taught before, but it doesn't mean we've been doing it the right way or three-dimensionally. So our goal is to move forward and across, to the inside and outside with some of those upper extremity drivers and rotations. To start, I'm okay with you guys rounding at the back, okay? Not a huge deal. I don't want you to feel like you're taking the pressure in the low back. I want you to feel a nice stretch in the hamstring, but it's okay to get a little sagittal plane motion or a little flexion of that spine. As long as by the end of it, my chest is up and I'm starting to work more on the hinge of my hips as I drive forward, rotate to the inside, and across. That's going to intensify that stretch a little bit more, which is also going to mimic more of our motions in things like the deadlift, the clean, or any ground to overhead or ground to pick up motion, okay? So practice those things. So like we talked about, we want to have a slight bend to the knee. We also want to do this with a big bend to the knee. So this is how we get a little higher up in that hamstring. You're going to press your butt down towards the floor, put a little more pressure into the heel so the weight's pressing down into the leg. Add in some of those same drivers, trying to feel a little stretch higher up in that hamstring. For those of us who haven't done a lot of stretching, this is a tough stretch to find sometimes. So if you don't find it right away, that's okay. Work on it as you move on and as you progress through your journey of fitness. From there, big focus is going to go into the upper extremity. So we focused on the lower extremity, calf, hip, groin, and hamstring. There's a ton more that we can add, but from there, we're just going to jump into some upper extremity stretches. Again, I want to make this a regular routine that we can get through pretty quickly so that we have some other dynamic warm-up motions that we can focus on afterwards. We're going to start with a pec stretch. So finding an anchor in the doorway, finding it on a car, finding it on a wall. You just want to feel like your body's stepping out in front of you. You're driving your chest forward and feeling a nice stretch through the front of your chest. Now, a lot of us sometimes get impingement, or if we're not warmed up, getting the shoulder or the arm overhead doesn't always feel good, so we can start at a lower height. I'm going to drive my body weight forward, letting my arm lag behind, feeling a nice stretch in my pec and in my chest. You notice I'm keeping my head kind of neutral forward, or potentially going to look towards the opposite direction to get a little bit more stretch through my neck and rotation through my cervical spine. And then just change the height of those hands. Just see where you can continue to feel the stretch in your pec. If I go too high and I start to compensate, maybe I feel a little impingement in the back of that shoulder. Drop the hand down a little bit, bend the elbow, and see if we can find that stretch with the elbow being bent. Again, those are good ways to find compensations or where your shoulder doesn't like to move in a certain range of motion. But if we can't get into a nice stretch of that shoulder overhead, we're going to have a difficult time with presses or finishes of motions that finish overhead. So you can do that as many times as you need to. You notice I had my same arm, same leg, really focus on driving forward. From there, we're going to go into a posterior shoulder stretch. So this is kind of like that old school arm across the chest. We're going to grab a hold of something. So grab around the edge of a doorway. For the doorway, you may need to stand to the inside. Otherwise, try to find something, get your fingers wrapped around. We can do a same side or opposite side step, which just means I can go either leg, but the goal is to feel a stretch through the shoulder and some rotation through my upper back. So I'm going to step forward, and you can start this one a little just more dynamic or a little more static Otherwise, we can take it into a lunge. Get that eyes up, head nice and neutral, eyes looking forward. Again, it's going to give me some good rotation in the upper back and in the neck. And then I'm going to switch those legs. Now I feel like kind of the hips are going opposite direction of the shoulder, so it's a little more like I'm kind of twisting the towel, but again, feeling a nice stretch through that shoulder, a little bit of rotation through my upper back, and then playing with a few eyes fixed forward, and maybe a few with the eyes following where the chest goes. Again, you guys can adjust the height of your hand based off of where you feel the stretch. Try to avoid the shoulder being pulled up to the ear. Allow yourselves to feel like your body weight is taking you into the stretch. So maybe for some of you, you can put the hand on that post or door frame and push yourself into that stretch a little bit more. Again, a lot of this is being controlled through our trunk and through our hips. So focus a lot on moving relative to where the body is in space. So if I'm up high here, I'm rotating a lot of myself down low to create motion up high. Those are just a couple of general stretches to get the upper body moving. There's a ton more that we can go through, and we'll have some other videos on that. But for you guys that want to find some consistency and a nice quick warm-up, make sure you hit both sides. You don't need a rep count. I just want you guys to feel good and get moving.